Thomas is a tank engine who lives at a big station on the island of Sodor.
Originally starred as storybooks titled The Railway series written by the Reverend Wilbur Awdry, Thomas the Tank Engine has become a classic icon in children's lives. In 1984, producer Britt Allcroft and director David Mitton brought the books to life for television. However, there was a previous attempt to adapt the stories, one that would never be seen again. This is the sad story of the BBC's adaptation of Thomas the Tank Engine. It's May 1953, and Railway series editor Eric Marriott at Edmund Ward Publishing receives a letter from R.G. Walford on behalf of the Copyright Department of the BBC, proposing, "Our television department has in mind televising, on the 14th and 28th of June, 2 stories from the book, The Free Railway Engines, by the Reverend Awdry, and also offering the standard fee of £1 a minute." Walford also explained that the stories would have to be edited to fill the 10-minute time slot on the BBC Children's Hour. Of the 2 stories, it was The Sad Story of Henry that would be adapted first. The Sad Story of Henry tells the story about an engine who is afraid of the rain spoiling his paint, to which he hides in a tunnel, refusing to come out. After many failed attempts to get him out, the head of the railway, Sir Topham Hatt, bricks up the entrance and leaves him in the tunnel as punishment, until later giving Henry a chance to redeem himself. In the adaptation, characters such as Edward, who was featured in the original book, would make an appearance, added with an obscure addition of James because of his similarities to the unknown Red Engine in the original story, that comes to try and push Henry out of the tunnel. The adaptation would have narration by Listen with Mother actress Julia Lane, backdrops based on the illustrations by Railway series artist C. Reginald Dalby, and model trains. Contrary to popular belief, the O-gauge models commissioned by Edmund Ward were not the ones used in the adaptation. Instead, the BBC used OO models by Hornby's Doblo range. As a model railway enthusiast, Awdry was concerned about the adaptation's authenticity. The BBC wanted to use out-of-the-box models that were similar if not almost identical with the illustrations, only to then say, "It is true that there are some differences. For example, the illustrations do not show any smoke deflector plates which are present on the Hornby models, but there is very little difference between the Hornby tank engine and the tank engine used for the illustrations." Meccano, who were the manufacturers for Hornby, supplied free Duchess of Atholl engines with tenders, while Douglas Mayer, director of the broadcast, sent the tank engine. Eric Marriott arranged for the models to be delivered to the publishing offices in Leicestershire, to be customized for their on-screen appearance. This involved repainting them to their appropriate colors by Peter R. Wickham, who was previously known for making Awdry's relief map of Sodor and the O-gauge models for Edmund Ward. On Wednesday, June 10th, Eric Marriott escorted the models to the BBC's Lime Grove studio in London for a rehearsal. As he recalls, he was shoved into a cubicle and given a pile of railway sound effects to choose from for use in the program. Later, he would go on to mention that upon entering the studio, he found Douglas Mayer having difficulties with understanding how the production was to work. The broadcast would be highly technical. Not only would it involve controlling the model trains and studio cameras, but also special effects such as superimposed rain, all of which was to be done live. On Sunday, June 14th, thousands of families gathered around their television to see the Railway series brought to life for the first time. The events that were to follow on that broadcast would not only affect the future of the adaptation, but also cause much embarrassment for the BBC. What happened on that broadcast would only be heard again by eyewitnesses, one of whom was Wilbur Awdry himself. He criticized the jerky movements of the models and that the story was freely adapted compared to his original. He even complained that James was allowed to gatecrash the adaptation, as he didn't appear in the original story. Then, during the broadcast, the operator made what Awdry called an elementary mistake, where the points were not set correctly, causing one of the engine's models to derail. Eric Marriott also remembered seeing the disaster. I settled down with my wife Dorothy and 2 children, Jennifer and David, in front of our 12-inch pie television, expecting great things. Julia Lane began telling the story. A train came down the line and fell off the track. And then a huge hand came into shot, picked it up, and put it back on the rails. By June 23rd, the failed broadcast was national news in the Daily Telegraph, and later made the front page in the Daily Mail, even overtaking a murder trial. Audrey received many letters of sympathy from his readers, who were outraged with the adaptation. Mother Margaret Adams wrote, "All the trains in all your books are live personalities in our house. Imagine the horror when we saw the disgraceful way the BBC dealt with them." Harold Wagg, a father, said, "We write thus to ensure you that we can always switch the television off, get one of your stories from the shelf, and by the television in our minds, conjure up a far better viewing of Thomas and his friends than the BBC's efforts." The BBC's response to all this? There was a bit of a mess up. Embarrassed, the BBC cancelled the second broadcast planned for June 28th. In an attempt to make amends, they offered Audrey if he could set up a working layout for them, they would be willing to film another adaptation. But Edmund Ward Publishing was not interested in going any further with a television series, stating that, "We are book publishers." With that, the BBC's entire adaptation of Thomas the Tank Engine was abandoned.
Once, an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain.
It would be another 30 years until the Railway series was adapted successfully, and the sad story of Henry would again be seen on television. As for the 1953 adaptation, its existence is very unlikely. As it was done live, and the BBC never recorded it, it will remain as a piece of lost Thomas the Tank Engine media.
"The rain will spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes," he said.